One, this is Sean Kelly at SPCC, and tonight I'm going to talk to you about the New Horizons mission, which is still going, but it had a very, sorry about that, it had a very important mission to reach Pluto, and after finishing that mission, it continued on. So we're very excited, I'm very excited to share that with you tonight. This will be a, hold on, let's see. I'm gonna go back to the slideshow. Let's go back. I don't know what's wrong. Let's try it again. Okay, here we go. Starting with the slideshow. This will be a story about the New Horizons mission as it went to Pluto and then beyond. Okay, so this is the best view of Pluto we have ever seen, right? This is absolutely incredible. And when you look at what we had before, you'll really understand. Before the New Horizons mission, we knew nothing or virtually nothing about Pluto, only that it orbited in the Kuiper Belt, or partly in the Kuiper Belt. Okay, so take a look at the New Horizons mission. Here is the best picture that we had before the New Horizons mission, taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. Where did Pluto come from? Well, Pluto was first discovered in 1930, less than 100 years ago, by Clyde Tombaugh at the Lowell Observatory, and it's really far away, right? It goes, it's more than 30 AUs from the sun, although for a short while, it does actually come in closer than Neptune, and just a little bit less than 30 AUs. It has a pretty eccentric orbit. It's the most eccentric of the orbits that we've talked about. And it is the first object past Neptune that has ever been explored, and we're going to find out that New Horizons didn't stop there. So anyways, this mission is a pretty exciting mission. It was the job of the mission, the New Horizons goals were to map the surface composition, the temperature, and the geology of Pluto and its large moon Sharon, right? The large moon Sharon is actually a significant moon. Kind of like our moon, it has a very large mass compared to the host planet. And so they have a very important dynamic between them. And then hopefully count maybe there's more moons than we had known about, and look for rings. And yeah, that was it. So it was launched in 2006. At that time, January 2006, Pluto was considered a planet. Okay, now, what happened to Pluto? Why was it demoted? And this is a book. I actually haven't read it, but I just ordered it. I'm going to read it actually this summer. But the book is by Mike Brown, and Mike Brown is a planetary astrophysicist at Caltech, and he and his team specialize in KBOs, Kuiper Belt objects. And so he wrote this book called How I Killed Pluto and Why It Had It Coming. And so what was important was that around this time, just shortly before, Mike Brown and his team had discovered another body in the Kuiper Belt, much further out. They called ERTH. They called it ERTH, and ERTH may have been, right at the time, it may have been more mass than Pluto. And based on their calculations, they suspected that there were 1,000 Pluto-sized objects in the Kuiper Belt. So one of my little things to kind of let you know that this is one of the things to just think about, right? You're a kid, you're learning the names of the planets. Can you learn the names of 8 planets? Sure, no problem, right? 8 planets, that's 8 planets, no big deal. But how about 1,008, right? Anyways, it became a struggle to try to figure out, should we consider these planets as full-fledged? And so they came up with the 3 criteria, which you know. Number 1, orbits the sun. All of these objects orbit the sun in the Kuiper Belt, right? Number 2, large enough to be a sphere, so it has enough mass that its gravitational force self-organizes it into the shape of a sphere, and certainly Pluto does, and certainly many of these other ones will. And number 3, this is the one that dwarf planets fail, has cleared its orbital path of debris. Now, Pluto and these other objects that we're describing are moving through the Kuiper Belt. They have not cleared their orbital path significantly, and therefore they were relegated to dwarf planets. They're just not large enough to vacuum or sweep up with the force of gravity the material in their orbital path. So it was August of 2006, not 2007, sorry, the same year that it was launched, it was demoted. I'm sorry, I messed up. Okay, now, Mike Brown also, and his colleagues, and I posted a video for you to take a look at, believe that there is a real ninth planet, which has a mass 5 to 10 times that of the Earth. And they have not seen it yet, but they're saying it's out there, and there's evidence to support that it exists. But Pluto, fourth planet. So actually, this is just a little kind of snapshot of some of the bodies that have been found. And so, of course, Pluto and the Eris that I mentioned, Haumea and Makemake and Gong and Quar and Sedna Orca. Okay, so these are some other bodies, and there's going to be a lot more. The problem is that actually up until pretty recently, relatively recently in astronomy, 30 years, we didn't know anything past Neptune, right? We really had no idea. In fact, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, let's say 50 years ago, people thought that out past Neptune and Pluto, right, there was nothing. There was nothing. They didn't even know about the Kuiper Belt. So the Kuiper Belt, and then there's another torus or donut around that called the scattered disk. We didn't know about that. Okay, so this is a pretty exciting time for planetary scientists. So to get Pluto there, to get New Horizons there in a reasonable amount of time, they shot it out there really quickly. And so it's launched in 2006, and then it finally got there in 2015, July 2015, it flew past. And so before this, I think I got my timeline wrong. In winter 2014, wow, another typo. In winter 2014, they began to take pictures. And every picture they took was the best picture of Pluto that had ever been taken, right? Because they're getting closer and closer and closer. So this was just a phenomenal time for us. We were looking at new pictures of Pluto every week, right? It was pretty exciting. And actually, I'll go on and tell you that, in fact, for the next year and a half, we were still seeing new pictures because the data transmission is so slow and so much data was collected as it flew past Pluto that it couldn't download it at all. It took like a year and a half to get it all down. So here it is. This is when it got really close, the closest picture of Pluto. And it was only 7,800 miles, 12,500 kilometers from Pluto on 14th of July, 2015. And the first thing people notice, right, and you guys probably noticed that there's a giant heart-shaped thing. That is actually a glacier. So you need to know that is the largest glacier we have ever seen in the entire solar system. And it is not made from water ice, it is made from nitrogen ice. Okay, so that's actually a feature that I want you to know about. The nitrogen ice glacier that covers one part of Pluto. Another, so it's very light colored. Of course, that means what? Light colored, high albedo, and also tends to mean fresh, right? New. And it's a glacier, it's moving, right? It's a moving thing. Now, I should mention to you that when they first launched this, they kind of thought that when they got to Pluto, they might be disappointed. It might actually be kind of a boring world, just a big frozen hunk of ice. And they didn't quite know, or they didn't expect there to be too much interesting geology. And they were so wrong, right? And this is actually partly what I want to do with you, is to share with you some of the exciting things that they discovered. So you'll notice that there's a red color on the surface. This material was in the atmosphere. And what happens is, as Pluto comes close to the sun, the atmosphere grows a little bit, right, from the extra heat energy. And then as it moves away from the sun, like it's doing now, this material will fall back down onto the surface. But meanwhile, it gets a little bit more complicated, right? The energy of the sun, as weak as it is, still causes some complexization, some chemistry taking place. And so these are organic compounds that we think are falling back onto the surface. And we'll see them on Sharon as well. So New Horizons was able to look at the atmosphere. And so you see this haze around Pluto. And it looks white here, but here's a false color image showing that it's mostly nitrogen, but it does have some haze of hydrocarbons, and it has methane and carbon monoxide. So Yeah, so the atmosphere changes dramatically as Pluto takes this elliptical path, kind of like a comet, the way that a comet will heat up and have a coma when it's near perihelion. When Pluto's near perihelion, it's going to have the most atmosphere, and when it moves away towards aphelion, it's going to have less atmosphere. It always has some, though, so it's not a comet, it's a dwarf planet. So here are some of the pictures that came back. And I just, again, nothing more than just an appreciation of how different and varied the surface is. This is not a boring hunk of material. It's exciting. There are mountains and there are plains and there are these weird features that at first no one had any idea what was going on. It's really kind of a fun thing to be able to see this, right? So what did they discover? They have ices of carbon monoxide, nitrogen, and water. Water is still there. There were these very interesting blades, right? And you can click that link, I hope you will, to see the little video clip. These methane knives that are shooting out of the surface in one area. And you can kind of think about that. These materials are, as they're being heated, they'll sublimate away and leave behind the kind of more stable part of it, and these blades form maybe hundreds of feet tall. The mountains on Pluto, very much like Titan, are made of water ice. They're not super tall, about 11,000 feet, 3,500 meters, so they're not super tall. But look at them, they're interesting, they're there. I mean, the fact that they're there at all is kind of a cool story. How did they form? That is actually a question I don't know the answer to. But there are people that are working on figuring out how that might happen. Maybe the glaciers, I don't know, we don't know how that happens. We just see it, right? We're observing it. And the next step will be to try to come up with a hypothesis. How did they form? So this is just exciting new information. So just to show you this picture, you've got mountains and you've got plains, and they're just interesting and varied. This is not a boring world. There's interesting things going on. So it's still alive in some sense, right? Because the surface is changing. The morphology or the shapes and structures are changing. Okay, so it does have 5 moons. We did not find any new moons, and they are named according to some mythology here. The river Styx, right? You might have heard of that. So the large moon is called Sharon, or some people say Chiron. But if you ask the person who named it, you'll find out that he named it Sharon, but he pronounced it differently than it's supposed to be pronounced after his wife Sharon. Okay, and then there's Nix, Hydra, Kerberos, and Styx. And Sharon is a nice big planet, a big moon. We'll see that, about half the size of Pluto. The others are really pretty tiny. And here is the best pictures ever taken of Nix and Hydra. And I don't know about you, but when I saw them, I was a little bit disappointed, right? Come on, NASA, you flew all the way there and you couldn't get better pictures of the moons? But here's the problem. When New Horizons flew past Pluto, it also took time to take pictures of the moons, but the moons weren't where they were supposed to be. And so this is a valuable, important lesson, right? We learn that the orbits of the moons of Pluto are chaotic. They do not actually have a very predictable path. It changes, and little tiny, dependencies between them, little perturbations we call them, will cause big changes in the overall orbit of the other moons. So the main moon, Sharon, and Pluto are going to have a special kind of orbital dynamics, but the other moons have chaotic orbits, which makes them very difficult to plan, where they're going to be. So here is Sharon. Take a look, right? And you can see it looks light and it has the reddish color, very similar to Pluto. There's a giant equatorial canyon, over 1,000 miles long. The southern region seems to be younger. There's less craters. Okay, why? What's going on? Okay, there's no answers. This is just observations. Okay, but here they are together, and you can see they really fit together. They're a pair. And the Sharon is half the size of Pluto. So what I'd like you to understand, something really important, right? We talked about the tidal force before. So the tidal force is the difference in the force of gravity exerted by one body on another. And we know that this caused our moon to be locked in its orbit around the Earth, right? So that one face is always facing inward towards the Earth. That's called tidally locked. And so I'd like you to know that Sharon is tidally locked to Pluto. So Sharon is facing just one face. But ladies and gentlemen, this is our first time ever finding that Pluto is tidally locked to Sharon. So the two of them are dancing around each other in orbit and always facing one face towards the other. Okay, this is a really cool thing. So New Horizons, that's it. That's it for Pluto, right? Just a quick little taste of what New Horizons covered. There's much, much more information out there if you want to go look at the NASA website. But these are the things that you need to know. So if you look, right, New Horizons continued on past Pluto, and they found a target. And it was super exciting because January 1st, 2019, it flew past 2014 MU69. Okay, now we came up with another name, actually for a little while. It was called Ultima Thule, and you can know that name, or you can know the real name. We now call it Arrokoth, okay? And here is a little video clip showing, showing it coming. And this is, you know, as time goes on, you'll notice that the camera is not quite focused. I think they did that almost on purpose, but I'm not sure. But then at some point you do get to see it in focus. And here we are getting closer. Oh, now it's starting to show up, right? You can see it in the middle there. It's starting to show up. And then you'll see it come clearer and clearer. There it goes, pinpoint of light. And there it is, tumbling end over end, this two-lobed creature. And there it is. Whoops, there it is, right? There it is. Arrokoth. Okay, there it is. That's a little artifact, by the way. There's no moon, but anyways, so many stories to tell you. But there it is. That is our new KBO, right? This is the furthest object ever observed by a human spacecraft, and it's pretty exciting. Okay, so I'm going to skip past that. All right. This is a colored image to show you what your eye would see. It's very dim. Remember, the light is incredibly dim out there. But this shows you some of the real colors that you would have seen if you could see it, if you could be there. And so what you want to notice, it has two lobes, and NASA has a wonderful website talking all about how this probably formed in a slow, you know, there was a bunch of debris that slowly kind of worked its way together, but it was rotating, and so it ended up forming a neck and rotating together. We talked about how when protoplanets or planetesimals smash together violently, they'll destroy each other. But if it's very slow, they can kind of stick together and stay together, right? So it's a gentle bump. It's okay. This is a gentle bump. And it may be that this is quite common, okay? Here is the highest resolution picture in slightly 3D, we can see. And we discovered that they're not so spherical, they're flatter than we thought. So I don't know if you can see that, but this upper one you can see is kind of elongated and flattened, like a turtle or something. Actually, this looks like maybe a turtle with a big head. Okay, just making this up, never said that before. Okay, so like I mentioned with Rosetta, and actually here's Rosetta for comparison. So this is a bigger object, much bigger object, right? This looks like about 10 times as big. Like with Rosetta, they have mapped the different regions of Arrokoth. And I put up here lots of new PhDs, right? There's people analyzing this data, trying to understand what does it mean, you know, but the key idea, what's the key idea? Why are we looking at these things? What's the point? And the answer is these are time capsules from the earliest part of our solar system. It's like going back in time and saying what was there at the beginning of our solar system. Where did we come from, right? Where did our sun come from? Where did the planets come from? These are the building blocks that will form our solar system one day. And so to see one raw and just the way it is, untouched for 4.6 billion years, it's just phenomenal. So that's why you should be excited. That's why I'm excited. So it is not done, by the way. Okay, and here's some of the data. So this is brand new. I've never told any class before, but they did surface spectroscopy. They found methanol or methyl alcohol, ice, hydrogen cyanide. I'm not sure if that's an ice or just an organic. It's not an organic. Oh yeah, it is. No, yeah, I think it is organic. Let's call it organic. Water ice and other organic compounds. Okay. Those red colored things are called tholins, and we found them on Pluto. We also found them on Titan. It's 35 kilometers long, about 22 miles. And believe it or not, data is still coming down, and it will be finished by the end of 2020. And the reason is because it's so far away, and the antenna is, the transmission is not so powerful. The data rate is incredibly slow. So talk about a slow internet. Yeah, that's a bad joke. All right, so they are not finished, by the way. They're hoping to find another object to fly past. I have not heard anything yet, but as soon as I do, I will let you know. If you want to follow the mission, you can go to Johns Hopkins University, jhu.ap, so it's pluto.jhuapl.edu, and you can see a wealth of information about the New Horizons mission. Okay, so you're supposed to know the New Horizons mission went to Pluto and then on to Arrokoth, and those are the furthest objects that humanity has ever been able to analyze. And so this is a pretty remarkable time. Thank you for your attention, and I will go ahead and finish up. There you go. Thank you.